Welcome back to day 9 of Rhythm and Resilience. And for those of you joining us for the first time, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I did not have a rhythm. And I knew that in order for me to be resilient through this universal reset, I had to find a rhythm. And I thought if I was struggling to find rhythm, probably the people that I get a chance to guide were struggling as well. And so I'm happy to report that I'm not near as frazzled as 4 weeks ago. However, I'm still working on finding that rhythm. I don't have it figured out yet, but we're doing it globally together. So we started this Monday through Friday check-in. We're in our, like I said, day 9, and we're going to do, we'll continue Monday through Friday through the end of this month, and then probably with some of the stay-at-home orders or stay-safe orders, we'll probably do some in May as well. So I thought today, before I introduce Frank, I would start with a prayer. And for those of you that joined us with Reverend Patricia Bash yesterday, she talked about this prayer. Here we go. So we'll start with some grounding. The light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is. I'm going to read it one more time, and I'm going to use the word us. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God is watching over us. Wherever we are, God is. So today, joining me on Rhythm and Resilience is Frank Ferrante. He's a 54-year-old. You're not 54-year-old. He's a Sicilian from Brooklyn, living. This is an old bio because I know you're not 54. Anyhow, he's from Brooklyn. He's lived all over the country, all over the world. He's a lover of life, great food, and he has a wonderful laugh. Frank is a recovering addict. He was obese, pre-diabetic, and fighting hepatitis C. He was estranged from his daughter, single and struggling with depression. Frank now knows that life can be better than this and look for a way out. Through Frank's story of love, redemption, and transformation, the viewers of the May I Be Frank documentary witness the power of change for themselves and the world. It's the essence of a human condition and what it truly means to fall in love again. So Frank, first of all, we met, I actually know exactly when we met the very first time, in June of 2010, hard to believe, 10 years coming up here. My first book came out, The Wellness on a Shoestring, and I got a call. Actually, I woke up dreaming about one of my friends, Jeanette Metzler. And you've heard this story before, but I'll share it for our audience. And whenever I have a dream or I feel that to me, that's a nudge. And so I actually text her. I remember driving from Western Shawnee into my office off of I-35, and I just texted her and said, "Hey, is everything okay?" And she happened to be up. It was about 6:30 in the morning. And so she texted me back and said, "Hey, call me." And so I called her. She said, "I have an extra ticket to this documentary night called May I Be Frank. Would you like to come?" It was a Wednesday night. And I said, "You know what, let me get back to you." So I called home and tried to see what was going on because, we're out a lot. And I typically am very mindful about being gone too many nights in a row. But my spirit was tugging me. And so I went and I sat in the audience for your first screening in Kansas City. We did not know each other at that time. And saw your story and knew that we were connected at some level. About 6 months later, we became more connected. We started hosting you at your Wellness Connection and inspiring people. So welcome to the Rhythm and Resilience series. I'm so glad that you took time to join us today.
Are you kidding? I love you. How could I say no to you? Forget it.
Well, I appreciate you saying yes.
And I love that. May I just say, I love the prayer, and I've come to the place in my life where I don't think of prayer as petitioning anymore. I think of prayer as summoning the divinity within. That it's not like, please God, like give me or help me, whatever. But rather it's like that place inside of us, inside of me, where I know divinity resides in spite of my neurosis. That tells me I'm separate. But so that was very lovely, actually. Just wanted to compliment you on your selection.
Well, actually, I'm going to tell you that Elliver's helped me on the back end, and we had an intention to start with grounding, but I'd always forget unless it was written down. And so now we actually wrote down what we're going to start with. So we're getting in rhythm of doing this rhythm. Frank, catch us up, and for our audience that don't know you and know your story, like I said, we've had you in Kansas City several times. We've become dear friends. Tell us give us the snapshot version of your life, because I really want to talk about resilience with you today, because by golly, if anybody knows resilience, you sure do. So talk about the last, give me a snapshot of before the last 10 years, 15 years, and then give me the last 10 years.
I'm giggling because you're asking Italian to be brief. Okay, snapshot of 20 years in 15 seconds or less. I think one of the things is I think we keep getting the same lesson until we get it, and then off to the next lesson. I mean, there's no arrival. The past 10 years, prior to the film, as you said, I was obese, pre-diabetic, depressed. I was also in grad school because I was a carpenter in my last life, and I was 50 years old, and I hurt myself. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I decided I was going to be a high school history teacher. And while I was on my last year of grad school, I stumbled into this film. I went into a restaurant that I thought was a coffee shop, and next thing I know, I'm asked to be in this film, and I didn't think anything of it. And 3 years later, because post-production, we didn't have any money, and we didn't have a camera or anything. All of a sudden, we're doing this film. And it's a testament to idealism, because we didn't know how, we didn't have the bread, but it was just this idea that was so, this idea and this desire to do this thing, that we succeeded just in spite of ourselves. And so now, from just really obscurity, next thing I know, I'm on a stage in front of a lot of people talking about the mind, body, spirit connection to health and wellness, feeling like a complete imposter because I didn't know anything about these things. And so began that journey. And in the beginning, as I said, I felt like a complete imposter. It took me a while to catch up to myself. And I think that's true of most people, that they think they're somewhere still buried in their story, but they're living a different story, but they haven't caught up with themselves. And in that time, since the filming, these guys, I was 125 pounds, I lost 125 pounds. People would ask me, I came to this other realization that people would ask me, how did you lose the weight? And I said, I didn't lose the weight. I let go of what didn't belong to me, which is a whole different way of looking at one's journey. And then all of a sudden I start, touring with this film and, on stage, which I had no preparation for, and living this incredible experience that, got me to meet somebody like you and, travel around the country and travel around the world and recognize that really, I'm no different than you. Circumstantially, they may be different, topographically, things may be different, but within the heart space and then, the mind and the heart space, that struggle, right? What Emerson called the journey without distance, the 18 inches between here and there. And that's what it's been. It's been that journey. Self-forgiveness, forgiving others, making peace, all those things, which really in some cases take a lifetime. And I'm lucky that I was thrust into this journey without any preparation. Certainly it wasn't on my terms, which is a good thing, because I would have always chosen the path of least resistance. And so here we are, from that place to you inviting me to talk to people about these issues that we're all going through. And now, now with this whole thing now, which is I'm sure we're going to lead up to, is it's afforded me an opportunity to really self-reflect in a way that I never could before. I'm in a relationship that it's affording me a level of intimacy I never would have, never would have engaged in this quickly. Because when you're with somebody, a quarantine partner, you guys get to know each other real quick, and it's a level of intimacy that is beyond anything that I would have imagined. Because when things are normal, which is certainly a subjective term, there's always things you're doing and deflecting and this and that. And now you're in the same place 24/7. And I'm experiencing an intimacy without doing. Like you had to do something to feel like I had a right to be there, or to justify my coexistence with this person. And now it's a different experience. I baked banana bread the other day. I never, when would I have done that? It's like, and I won't do it again for a while because I just consumed 2 loaves in one day. So that's not going to happen again. But, what is it? What does the heart want? What are our priorities? What is it? What is it that's really important? This is important to me. Relationships are the most, to me, that's the other conclusion I've come to, that the most important thing in my life are relationships. And everything else is secondary. And what do I do to cultivate that garden? Because the cultivation I do now with relationships are the relationships that are going to be with me in my 70s and in my 80s. And that's become very important to me. Does that answer your question? Was that short enough? I was trying to be short. Did it work?
It worked great. It worked great. So you know this because you've been on Small Changes, Big Shifts. You were actually on, and you were on with Raz and Grassi. And yesterday we happened to have Patricia Bass on the show, my personal minister, and she talked about the Hoffman process. And it's funny enough you're here today, and you've also done the process. And our guest tomorrow, who's younger, 30, has done the process. So we're not going to dive into the process because we've talked about that a little bit. But you know me, I like to think of small changes that can lead to big shifts to create the life of our dreams that we're designed to have. And I like to celebrate people, give guidance, make connections, and then provide hope. And so in this time, we're celebrating you. And I loved how you said your number one priority is relationships, because there's a saying that I keep going back to as I'm recalibrating during this reset. There's another R for us, Eleanor: resilience, rhythm, recalibration. Now we got reset. But as I'm recalibrating, something that has always been important to me, and a testament on the call, we've got Linda Fingston on the call, who I've known since I was in 9th grade, one of my sheroes. And for me, I call it LTRs, lifelong, lifetime relationships. Right. And so, and how do we cultivate those? And I would love to hear your guidance. If you put relationships as your number one thing, so in today's Talk Story Therapy, Talk Story right. Thursday, tell us, how can people really invest in relationships? What's that look like? I first of all, I thank you. I appreciate the question. I think, wow, that's such an easy answer. I mean, really, it's like, if people cry at your funeral, you lived right? It really comes down to, like, if you lived a good life. And, it's like the Dalai Lama said, what's his religion? His religion was kindness, right? We all know what that is. And I think, it's not rocket science, it's just be kind, be nice, and nobody is all the time. Sometimes, like, people get upset sometimes when they revert back. Like, say I came out of Hoffman and I was, like, glowing in the dark and all that. And then I get back to LA, somebody cut me off and I started cursing at them, which is really kind of dopey when you're yelling at somebody that can't hear you. But it had nothing to, but recognizing that it had nothing to do with that other driver, and recognizing that my reaction was disproportionate to the circumstance. So what do you do? Just, do what you do. Be, I'm sure all these people that are, in front of me do. Just be nice to people. Give them, just give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, if you're in an intimate relationship, really give, before you, connect, before you correct. And give them the benefit of give people the benefit of the doubt, it's all mapped out for us. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is in every single spiritual practice. There has that in one way, one form or another. Hang on. We've got to dive into that because so many of us do unto ourselves. We never do that to others. And so when we think about that, I think about the way I talk to myself. I'm never that judgmental of somebody else.
Right.
And so that's where it goes back to digging in and not only connect before you correct others, but how do you connect to yourself? And so what are some of the tools? Because you mentioned you've lost 125 pounds, you've maintained that, you've released the stuff that wasn't serving you anymore, that the feeling of self-loathing or not good enough, or the shame from possibly some of the ways you were raised. How do we connect deeper with ourselves?
Well, I relate. I used to say, if anybody talked to me the way I talk to myself, I'd have to kill him. One of the things that I do, right? Because I go through times when I feel like sometimes it's not that bad anymore, but I went through a period of time where I felt I didn't even have a right to exist. And one of the things that helps me immeasurably are people like you. I have a very small group of friends that when I get off center, and I feel like a piece of crap or unworthy or whatever, that there are people in my life that will help me recalibrate my compass and remind me of who I am, more importantly, who I'm not. And I, slowly get back to center. That's one of the ways. And also the tools I've picked up along the way, and sometimes recognizing, that voice is back again. The one who tells me I'm not worthy of being loved. The one, to this day, sometimes when my girlfriend tells me she loves me, I'm thinking, why? What is it? How could that be? And that's the old, that's that little kid that got rejected or whatever. But I've gotten to a point in life where I can at least recognize that voice, and it takes me a lot less time to get back to, to that place where I'm lovable or I'm clear enough to be present to somebody else. Because the caveat to being that way, where that voice is coming up, is you can't be fully present for other people, when you're that way.
So Frank, when you talk about those moments, and talk about dissonance, right? And there's the reality of what's true, and there's the stuff that's in your head or your heart that's not healed. Do you take a moment and go back to the 12 steps? Because you've done the 12 steps. We had Terry Grieg on Monday, and she talked about her greatest gift is her sobriety. I think she said 27 years, Eleanor 28 years, something like that. So how do you shift? Because I get in that moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, who do you think you are? You're the fraud. And why do you think people want to join you for a resilience series and all that shit? That's what it is. It's just shit right in your head, right?
Did you just swear?
I did. I said shift.
Yay! One for our team. Yeah, okay. Well, Michelle, the trick is to listen to the voice and not the voices, right? It's like, just pick one.
Yeah, that is really good wisdom. Pick the one voice. And what if it's the voice that is not true? So do you ask it some questions? I really like Byron Katie's work. Her work's helped me.
Is it really true? Right. Well, it's certainly it takes me a lot less time to get back to that. But I think it's always there on some way, and it's very clever. It disguises itself, it's in different costumes, but it's always it's the same thing. I just different. I have a variety of tools that I use, and sometimes a phone call. Somebody, like, I'll be in this deep dark place, and somebody will call me, and with an issue. And this is the other thing. The best remedy for that is to help somebody else. Right? It's like that saying, like, I don't think much of myself, but I'm all I think about. I am at my happiest when I'm not thinking about myself. I'm at my happiest if I'm on the phone with somebody, sort of walking them through a heartache or walking them through some kind of existential neurotic crisis about feeling separate. Because at the root of everything we're talking about, in my opinion, at the root of every single fear is a sense of separation from spirit, from separation from self, separation from, yes, what the definition of a neurosis is, it's separation from self. And people that are really intelligent have a harder time. Freud said that at one point the intellect becomes a slave of the neurosis, and so the intellect gets really smart about how to make you feel bad about yourself. We get really sophisticated about these stories, that have nothing to do with any kind of reality whatsoever.
Well, you use the word separation, and we're in fascinating times right now when we're kind of separate but yet together. We're here together right now with 20-ish people, and we have a couple hundred people doing this program with us. Before I ask you more about that question, I'm going to remind our listeners, now's a great time if you have any questions to plug them into the chat, or if you have anything that you've been doing this week that you want to share with the group for the betterment of each other. This is a perfect time. So talk about the guidance, how we're separate right now. We're separate.
Physically, yeah.
So how are you navigating this time? Because you're a little bit of an extrovert, not a full-blown extrovert, but you really like people.
I thrive on that. That's the juice. The juice is interacting with other human beings. That's why I love touring and going, doing Q&As, because I never know what's really going to happen. There's going to be those questions and I love doing that. But again, separation is an illusion. Just because you're in Kansas and I'm here, we're not separate, and as long as I have some love in my heart, then it mitigates the sense of separation. That's what, that's it. It's like really, really making sure that, that you keep watering that garden, keep making sure you have love in your heart, at least some, to, that's what I find, I have, when I have a couple of people over for dinner and we're really communicating from a heart place, we're having fun and humor. It's not like we're all really serious and quoting Eckhart Tolle all the fucking time. We're just, excuse me, but I had to outdo you. but it's the everything that encompasses the human experience: laughter, humor, wit, depth, intelligence, and all that stuff, and really just like, taking a chance on looking like a fool, taking a chance. What everybody on TED Talk, all the good TED Talks, what all those people have in common? They have a willingness to fail, because otherwise you could never get to that place, of that kind of wisdom or that kind of understanding about something without being willing to fail. And it's not easy. I don't like it, but you've done it, and it's those scars that that we accumulate in life. Like you have a nice leather bag and it looks really great new, but it's got no stories. It doesn't have any character. 20 years later, with the creases and the scratches and all that, like it has character. It has depth. It's more malleable. And that's what, and in life, that's, and especially now, with adversity, or let's just say, getting older, there's a wonderful quartet. I love to talk about this. There's a Beethoven quartet that's very intense. And at one point, it's so intense that what happens is that the instruments start to go out of tune. And the challenge to the musician is to maintain as much integrity to the piece, to the music, while the instrument now is changing. And it's like, that's what life is like, right? You have some kind of adversity and you're trying to play this, your symphony with this instrument that, goes out of tune, right? We get older, we can't rely on some of the things that we had, like our looks or whatever those things are, that they start to change. And how do you maintain the integrity of your symphony while this instrument goes out of tune? That's really a beautiful metaphor for, what's going on now, right? It's like, this is like, nobody was prepared or trained for this. The instrument is slightly out of tune. Well, where is it on the fretboard that we have to go to get that note? So.
Frank, I'm thinking as you're saying that separation and connection and starting to identify and love yourself at another level, I'm thinking about a part in your movie where you say you want to love yourself one more time. fall in love one more time. That's what you said, right? Fall in love one more time. And there's that gap of where you are in self-love is self-care. Talk a
Right.
little bit about some of the tools, and this is a great time once again for questions if you have them, or share any wisdom in the chat notes. But talk about closing that gap.
Well, it's been a long, strange trip. Forgiveness is a huge part of it. Self-forgiveness, of course, is part of it. But recognizing, there was a lot of violence in my childhood, for example. Right. There's two things I could. One way I handled it was, I'd go out for drinks, and I'd meet you at the bar, and in 3 minutes, I would enroll you in my crusade against the Catholic Church, or against marriage, or against what women do this or women do that, and that whole shadow thing, and come to realize that I had a part in all of it. What was my part? One of the big things in my recovery, and I'm just talking about drugs and alcohol, but in life, was, I sobered up, and I had been sober, I don't know, a little while, and all of a sudden it occurred to me how my behavior was affecting other people. I never thought about it. And I started thinking about how my behavior affected my children, how it affected my marriage, how it affected my job, before that, I was just so self-centered, I didn't think about that. I just thought about mine, and when am I going to get mine, and how quickly can I do it? And when I started thinking about how my behavior affected other people, I almost cried. It was like such a profound experience. And that was the turning point of recovery, from the first half of my life. Not just drugs and alcohol, just a symptom. If you take the drugs and alcohol away, now you're stuck with you, right? Now what? And so recognizing how my behavior affects other people and having that feeling of such profound remorse. And that's not a punishment. It's an appropriate feeling for reflecting on that. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question. I can have a tendency to be tangential. But I think that's, recognizing what's my part, not what's my fault. What is my part? Because then I can change it. What's my fault? I get into the guilt thing and I remain stagnant. But what's my part? I could change that. What's my part?
I believe we're being called at this time to really look at what is our part, and how do we show up in the world, and how have we been showing up? Is it truly authentic to who we are in this now moment versus 10 years ago or 20 years ago? I know for me, what I'm thinking about for myself is when am I in dissonance? When am I, I'm typically, I work on joy. I've worked on healing my stuff. So when am I in that space of loving and kindness and giving? And then when I curl up and I shrivel up in fear, that to me, that's dissonance. When I'm in fear, I know I'm not being true to myself. And so that's kind of my gauge, and that's been fascinating to walk through COVID-19. The last, we're a month into it, thinking about, okay, where is the dissonance? How are you showing up, and how are you not showing up for yourself? And so that's, I think, part of the lesson in this is how do we start to show up for ourselves at a deeper level, whether it's that forgiveness, whether it's tuning in and dialing in. I really think about connect before correct. And I'm thinking about myself. I think my greatest lesson here is my own connection to myself. And I'm surprised that I'm getting that lesson. Now that I say that out loud, I'm kind of, maybe I was arrogant thinking I had that figured out, but I obviously I didn't, because this is challenging me at a whole nother level of showing up for myself, for myself.
I'd like to add to that I think that depression, not all, but a lot of depression is a result of not being in alignment with your core beliefs and compromising your core beliefs. And I really believe that is a significant component to that lends itself to depression, which is what you're talking about dissonance, depression is, or anxiety. You're not in alignment, but And I think curling up in that ball is, it just means that you're a feeling human being. Sometimes like really being angry or depressed, is appropriate. The fact that 17 million children die every day from starvation, well, that should piss you off. That should upset you. What's happening, in our country politically. If you don't have a feeling about that, then you don't have a pulse. And it doesn't mean getting into an us and them thing. Wow, what is it my way within my world? What can I do to mitigate some of that? I can't do anything in Washington or anywhere else for that matter, but I can affect my immediate circle. And it's really important to have friends like you who will call me on my bullshit. That's somebody who's invested in your life and your well-being. They will take that risk and not talk about condemning but really to say no. That's to say no when no is appropriate, to say yes when yes is appropriate. Irrespective of your fear about it. Because how else can you help me if you co-sign my baloney? How does that help either one of us?
Co-sign my baloney.
How does that help either one of us? If you co-sign. Yeah, you know what I want to say, but I'm not gonna. I'm holding back.
Well, thank you, because I'm going to catch a little grief for saying shift.
I'm holding back.
Well, thank you. I know you're from New York.
Yes.
Yes, full shift. Yes. So once again, this is a great time for questions for Frank. Frank, you've done. I'm guessing you're still doing the program. You're still doing 12 steps. Still going to AA.
I've added a few since then. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long have you been in recovery? Well, I guess we're all recovering from something, but how long have you been from recovery from drugs and alcohol?
I've been in the 12-step world since 1989. There was a skip in the record in 2005, but I've been around the rooms since 1989. But I've gone. What that did, it also enabled me to explore other things, other modalities and other practices and other disciplines, and because when you're loaded, you're kind of one-dimensional. Even though you may be creating a lot of drama, you're essentially at best two-dimensional. Mm-hmm. So cleaning that part of my life up enabled me to look at how you do things and maybe take what works in your life and incorporate it into mine. And so I've been around quite a bit.
So I'm going to start taking questions from the chat here in just a second. Frank, I'm thinking about 3 words, and these 3 words I've wrestled with the last, to be frank, the last 2 years as I've been working more and more with people with anxiety and depression, and then I really think a lot of it's loneliness. How do you think those 3 words go together, and how would somebody dissect that with what they're feeling?
What three words again?
Depression, anxiety, and loneliness.
I think that they're all part of the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's really, the loneliness is feeling separate, right? Depression and anxiety come from feeling separate, right? That's when when I'm freaked out, when I feel alone. In my life I've gone into panic attacks. Mm-hmm. Feeling separate, and it has nothing to do with anybody else. I think one of the loneliest times I ever had was in my marriage. I'd be, my wife would be sleeping, and I'm lying next to her, and I felt bone-crushingly alone. So sometimes it's even lonelier when there's other people around and you can't feel that connection. So I think they're all part of the same thing, really, and it's the illusion. Because we're not, right? It's the grand illusion.
So what is something somebody can do right now if they're feeling separate? What you said give. You said
do something nice for somebody and don't get caught. Mm-hmm. Do something nice for somebody and don't get caught. And the thing about that is it helps you exercise a muscle. Like when I did something nice with somebody, I want it to be above the fold in the New York Times, and I want everybody to know about it because I want you to like me and think how great I am. But if I do it quietly, I exercise this muscle inside of me that I start to feel good about myself just because, just because I sort of expanded a piece of my heart and I'm in resonance with spirit rather than the other way around. It really, that's what it comes down to for me.
Well, that really leads me to one of my last few questions I have, but before I give you my last question, Anita has a question for you. Do you believe the world is falling in love again through the virus?
I think that the virus is Mother Earth giving us a timeout. It's like if everything comes from the earth, right? Even something synthetic, its origins are in the earth. And I think I know that sounds like, airy fairy stuff, but I really feel that way. It's just like, okay, it's time to, hey, stop. And it's an opportunity to do that, nature doesn't, it doesn't punish and it doesn't reward. It's just a consequence. You plant the seed, you get a tree. You don't plant the seed, you don't get a tree. And it's really on us. In nature, there are no rewards and no consequences. There's no rewards and no punishments. There's just consequences. And consequences not in a negative sense. It's like I just said, you plant a seed, you get a tree. We're very fortunate in a lot of ways, and I also think a lot of great things are going to come out of this. I really do. I don't know what, but I don't have any evidence for it, not necessarily, but I believe that it's something great's going to come out. There's a number of great things that are going to come out of this. The shadow will rear its head and try to counter it, and it always will, because there's always that, the shadow light thing. But I do believe that. And Mother Earth is giving us a timeout.
Without a doubt, we're getting a timeout, which is kind of inspiring. So this is a question for the whole audience, and I'd love for you to participate, but I'm going to take it to Frank first. I believe we all have medicine or magic to share. Mm-hmm. What do you think is your magic or medicine to share? And everybody else, I would love to hear your thoughts on this in the chat section.
I like to crack people up. I really do. I really enjoy, like, it's sort of like a call and response song. I say something and somebody laughs, and a laugh is really, and I think the reason I love it so much is because you can't fake you can, but you know what I mean? You can't really fake a laugh. You can't do it. So like, I enjoy that. And I think, I like you, enjoy being present. I mean, you're a chiropractor. You got literally hands-on with people. You touch people to make them feel better. And I think, I try to do that, with my words and my experience. And as they say in the 12-step world, sharing my experience, strength, and hope. And we're elders now, Michelle. In all cultures, so-called primitive cultures, the elders have arrived at a place of respectability because of their experience. And I think that that's our responsibility, and our medicine is our wisdom. And we're elders now, and it's our responsibility to make the coming generations, or even people our age that are still like kind of sleepy, to, afford them an opportunity through our reflecting on our experiences to make their life a little bit better. Just a little easier, maybe, just a little more fun, generate a few more smiles and a few more laughs. And, and recognize that, man, everything's on loan here. Everything. And the main life lesson is is a Buddhist thing. How well can you let go? Because what you don't let go of, as Bruce Springsteen says, will be stripped away. So, how well can we do that? How gracefully can we do that?
I used to have in my treatment room a saying that said that it will be how well you loved, how well you learned, it'll be how well you learned to let go, or something like that. Right. It's not in my treatment room right now. I'm a little bit of a word nerd. a word nerd. So, well, I just love that you said yes to me when I called and said, hey, help me, help my people. And when we think about the magic of what we can do in this connection, this time of reconnecting. And so it's been fun to reconnect with you. You know, it's been a few months since we've actually got a chance to see each other, but we get definitely a chance to reconnect. So as we wrap up here, I know Anita's sharing her magic is to share with everyone is giving kindness and a safe feeling that someone truly cares about. Drew, calm resilience through adaptability. Able to find a way past unexpected challenges, which we're having unexpected challenges right now, and being optimistic about the future. And I totally agree that that's where, and you know, Joe Ellen, I'm not sure, Joe Ellen, are you still in Mexico? But anyhow, that's a whole nother question. Making people feel special and that you rarely take the time to do it. This is a wonderful time to really dive into your magic and think about how you can reach out to others and share your magic. I'm a people collector. I love to collect people, and I love to figure out how they can connect with each other to get to where they're going to in life. And so I would encourage you to spend some time the next few days thinking about, what is my magic and how do I share that with other people? Because people are battling with loneliness and depression and anxiety. Say that again, Frankie.
That loneliness is an epidemic.
Yeah.
It's really epidemic. I mean, I've been across the country and even in other countries. Man, it's like almost everybody's lonely. Almost everybody, and yet we have all this technology to communicate. But it's a faux way of communicating. It's not really. I mean, it is to a certain extent, but it's not. And I just historically, because I'm a student of history, every time there was a technological advancement, the dialogue was exactly the same. So when the printing press came out, it's going to afford people a way of connecting. It will forge a new brotherhood. When the transatlantic cable was laid, they said the same thing. When the telegraph, this is going to create another brotherhood. Certainly with the internet, they said the same thing. It's an external. It's all an inside job. And we're still reaching for an external solution to an internal dissonance. And it's because throughout history, we've looked outside of ourselves for the answer that is waiting for us to pick it up inside. Emerson said, the longest journey of his life was the journey without distance, the 18 inches between his head and his heart. And that's what everybody's struggling with. Everybody's struggling with that, just that 18 inches, man. And so, yeah, loneliness is an epidemic.
Well, when I think about that as a chiropractor, the connection between the head and the heart is the neck. And so it's one reason why we see a lot of neck pain and a lot of arm pain and a lot of headaches.
Well, I'm on. You can connect with me through Facebook. If you want to email me, ferrantefrank@gmail.com. One of the reasons I don't commit crime anymore is because I'm easy to find. Yeah, it's if you want to find me, you'll find me. But I'm easy. And if you, the film is on Gaia. It's FMTV and Gaia. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys. All right, and that's where the film is. The book is now out of print, but I'm going to add to it and then publish it again. But it's still.
I might have a few copies here, actually.
Yeah. So there you go. And but if you want, we'll work that out. But
yeah, so we might have a few books here. Eleanor put in the show notes that will go out to you all how to find Frank. Frank, and this part of the show is I like to let you kind of know how you've inspired us today, and then how you inspire me. Melissa loves how genuine you are. Bridget loves your honesty. I love Drew. Thanks for joining. It's the first time I think you've been on with us this last 9 days, and it's good to see you, by the way. A little heart emoji, and your humor, of course, Miriam loves. And you know what how you inspire me, Frank, is first of all, you genuinely love me. And I would call you a big brother, not a father, but I had 4 fathers or stepfathers in my life as a young person. But you're just a great big brother. You champion me, you cheer me on, you say yes when I call you. If I happen to be in the city you're in, I call you and you make time to go have dinner or lunch. You inspire me because you're just willing to show the dark side and yet bring light onto the dark side. So thank you for saying yes.
Thank you.
To our listeners, either post listening or that are live with us today, thank you for joining us on Rhythm and Resilience, and how we can continue to go through this universal reset and be more connected to ourselves than we've ever been. Tomorrow, right here, we'll actually have a young person, somebody under 40. How good is that? Actually, my friend actually, like my bonus daughter, Sonia Tolley, will be joining us, and she is going to be talking about Friday fun. And she's just a brilliant young lady that I've had the privilege of being in her life for 20 years this year. It's hard to believe how time just flies. I'll look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thanks for helping to share this message of hope and healing. And I'm sending you all lots of love, and I'm sending you a big old heart too. All right, heartbeat. Blessings.
Nice to meet you guys.
Bye, Frankie. Bye, everybody.